Live.
Today, the Wits and Weiss and Wits talking human. Oh my gosh, are you excited here, Greg?
I'm amazed. I'm super excited. I'm really excited that we're able to actually get everything logged on and set up and organized, being the first one and thinking about two of us plugging away and pushing buttons right before all of this. So no, this is very exciting, and we get to have some amazing conversations when it comes down to just everything to do with business and people and life and relationships.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just so everyone knows, at 2 p.m. on Monday, every Monday, this is now the Talking Human show where Greg and I will do what Greg just mentioned. We're going to talk about business. We're going to talk about relationships. We're going to talk about love. We're going to talk about diversity. We're going to talk about what else, Greg? Everything, right?
Anything and everything to do when it comes down to being a human being and leading human beings and building businesses with human beings.
Absolutely. And the other thing is that we highly encourage everyone to communicate with us and send us in questions because we will take those questions during the week. And you might even get a surprise from us. We're even going to invite you on to the live broadcast to have a moment with us. It'll be good for you. You'll get promoted through Greg's network and my network, which are ever expanding. And it'll be good for us because this is about building community and being in service, sharing wisdom. We don't have all the answers, and we have a lot of questions. And so join us. And with that, Greg, what do we say? We said today we were going to talk about an imperfect plan in action is better than a perfect plan not in action because it directly relates to what you and I just experienced for the last week since we decided really to go live, right?
Correct, and it's timely because and I'll give him credit. That
Mike's cutting. Your
One of our
mic's
team
cutting.
members.
I got static. Go ahead.
You got
Talk.
static. What about now?
Static.
Hmm. Nope, I don't have any static on my end. It could just be the. How bad is the static?
it's it's very bad. If
Okay,
you
so I'm
talk,
not hearing it on my end, and I could look to switch microphones right now, but that might create a little bit of a problem. But let's do it anyway. Let's see what we're working with here.
this is perfect plan and opportunity for us to continue to grow. All right, as Greg is going to switch, um, what we're going to do is talk about today what it looks like to step in and not worry about being so perfect. Really, that was really the topic of our conversation today. And, whenever you're dealing with technology, whether you're a speaker going to speak on stage, sound checks and mic checks and presentation checks and all the checks, you get them all set up and you're dialed in and you're ready to perform, and you walk on stage and they introduce you and you begin to speak, and then you're looking in front of 1,000 or 2,000 people and nobody can hear you. So that's a moment where you've got to keep your poise, but you also got to sit in a place of being proactive versus reactive, being in a place of, okay, I got this. And what is going to determine the success of the next 60 minutes is what you do in the next 6 seconds or 60 seconds. You with me, Greg? I do not hear you. So he, yes, go with the other mic. Try and switch back in again. You're trying four mics. All mics, all mics are off. Um, Maybe power. You're going to come back on again? All right, he's going to come back off and come back on. So, yeah, so the reality is what happens in the next 60 seconds and next really six minutes of the hour presentation. It's what goes on, the stress, the heart rate, the thought, I mean, of course, there's also going to be panic. Public speaking for some who are pros, then they do it over and over, then that happens quite often. But for others like me, I've spoken on stage, but I would not consider myself a pro. There is a fear element in front of 1,000 or 1,500 and the mic doesn't work. So the question is really what's happening from a mindset, and also this is a visual vision. What's the word? It's a body experience, right? When you're speaking and you're about to go on and 1,500 people and we're opening after they introduce you, your mic's not working. What's that feeling like, Greg?
Well, if you've never given a presentation, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
we got audio back?
Yeah, we do have
Amazing.
audio.
Is there a hum and a buzz there, or are we technically set up?
We're good.
All right, amazing. Well, as Mike was saying, sometimes in the moment, how you manage that technical situation, being a presenter is a huge thing. But we were talking about operating with a little bit of a plan and figuring it out along the way is better than not doing anything at all. And it's interesting because, we were just chatting with some clients last week, and we ran a session for critical thinking, design thinking. And really what that whole conversation was about was, as much as we want to plan for things and as much as we're trained and conditioned to have an absolute plan, right? And yes, we want to rehearse and go through these things. One of the things that we can start to look at is moving forward is how do we problem solve differently? And one of the ways of doing that is being able to make decisions in the moment with the current plan. It's almost like fluid project management now, which is it's to plan and do. So we're going to move forward a little bit, see what happens, and we can sort of take some action. And I think in the world that we're living in today, it's a very important skill set.
Give me a for instance, if you're doing a workshop, like what would be, say you're talking to a leader, like what would be the scenario that popped up that would cause them to need to step into this?
Well, I mean, let's go for something a little more, a simple example, which is the industry that, I'm in and once upon a time you were in, which is the training, development, coaching, facilitation. It is a very common thing to walk into a room planned and prepared to deliver your lesson, and something starts to go wrong. There's no whiteboards there. There's no flip charts. There's no markers. The markers that they have don't work. Or the technology, or your dongle that you need to plug in with in order to use your presentation, or the fact that maybe you're a Mac user and it's a PC environment. And the question comes down to is what do you do in the moment to continue the delivery? And there's a wonderful saying, which is the curtain opens, the show must go on. And having your ability to problem solve in the moment, I think, is a very important skill set. Right? We can't be so reliant on things in the sense that they're going to work. We have to be able to massage and problem solve and work through. A very simple example now.
So let's go a level deeper. So top level, got it. You prepare. Preparation is 9/10. You step in, something's broken. But I want to get into when you're standing in front of those 50 corporate execs and the thing goes wrong, there's a mindset component that you have to be able to control. And I'm sharing that I think there's also the body reacts,
right,
especially when you're in public speaking or something. So I want to talk about what you think about that, how you would get that through that, and then maybe I'll come and share about that as well, because the objective of what we're talking about today and talking humans from today going forward is like no one needs more information. Okay, yeah, you guys are brilliant. You told me I'm going to make a presentation and something's going to go wrong. Who gives a shit? People are going to listen to us, Greg, if we just
right,
say
right.
that. But if we do say, okay, preparation is 9/10, you're going to go give a presentation, something's going to go wrong. Let's talk about one or two things that you can help people do in that instance to then be able to powerfully step in. I think that's the next level that you and I need to focus on, if you're good with that.
Right. Yeah. Well, why don't I start by sharing this? One of the things that we know about human beings is we are imperfect, right? Technology and process and systems, they don't work well with us, right? We're not built that way. Now, when operating in this world of presentations or facilitation, or you're walking into a room, and maybe you're not a facilitator or presenter, maybe you're going to your board and you're having a board meeting. Maybe it's your team, your sales team, and you're making some sort of announcements. Right. One of the things that starts to happen, you start to describe it, is in the moment the human being is going to react, right? And the first thing that's going to start to happen is your body is going to start to alert you. Your heart's going to start to race, right? The neck and the hair on your neck's going to start to stand up. You're going to start to get tense. Now, one of the things we know as human beings is you'll operate in one of three ways in that moment. In that moment of anxiety, in that moment of stress, you will revert into surviving. Now, what I do is I get frustrated and I try to fight. Right? So the one thing that I know is my natural way of responding to this probably isn't going to solve and resolve through that. So catching that, I mean, I think preparation and planning is 9/10, but what do I do in the moment? One of the things we got to recognize is that we are emotionally hijacked. That anxiety that you're feeling, that stress that you're going through, you're emotionally hijacked.
Okay, I'm getting stressed right now. The thing is, static is back. Yes.
The static is back. Okay, I could try the audio one more time. One more time. Let's see if this changes things.
Do you feel like it's maybe the Rode mic wireless connection to the base receiver? Yeah, so while he's figuring that, this absolutely can go wrong because when you're using wireless mics and you're on different frequencies, you can get frequency interruption or pattern interruption. So that's why when you go to big events, they've got the really good systems. Or frequently you see people having to swap out mics and that kind of thing. I think probably the music industry is the best at it because they've got they're set up for audio first. And so anyway, this is while he's getting reconnected again, I'll share this formula that is the proactive versus the reactive formula. It's a pretty simple formula. Basically, what you do is when something goes wrong, and like we're talking about now, something went wrong. There's a moment after that situation goes wrong. There's a space, and before you train yourself in the proactive versus reactive formula, the space is collapsed. It's very small, and so if something happens, you're naturally human instinct going to react. That's what we do. We're animals. We're trained to react. So if we can figure out the first step, which is when something does go wrong, to basically pause. It's a pause. It's let's call it a timeout. And during that timeout, and in the beginning, it will be very hard. Something will go wrong, you just react. Something will go wrong, you just react. Something will go wrong, you're like, oh, I forgot to pause. And something will go wrong, it's like, oh, I forgot to pause. A first awareness is realizing, oh, I forgot to pause. And then it's like, okay, maybe once you'll then say, oh, something went wrong. And I can pause. And I pause 2 seconds. And I pause 4 seconds. And I pause 5 seconds. So it's a muscle. Just like going to the gym, you can't go and sit on a bench press and expect to bench 225. Like you can try, but nothing's going to happen. So I was just sharing that when something goes wrong, this proactive versus reactive formula, which is a Kabbalistic principle, is human nature. If something goes wrong, we want to react. Wrong, react. Wrong, react. And the first step is basically just to recognize that you can pause, recognize you can pause, recognize you can pause, and then maybe you pause for 1 second. And then it builds up a practice that when something goes wrong, it's like that workout, like now you can have a pause. It's not to say that you won't, react. And maybe the
Well,
reaction is good.
hopefully not, right? By the way, we should be back now with another microphone. This is microphone number 5. So,
This one,
the joke about this is have backup on top of backup on top of backup. But I love what you were talking about, which is the pause, because that's where I was going with. In the moment when our anxiety is high, we're emotionally hijacked, and at that point, anything that you're going to do is going to be out of a reactive position. And there's nothing worse than reacting from stress in any environment. So pause, I think, is a huge piece. And one of the things I remind people about technology when it comes down to things like this is you got to go back to the workflow. You got to go back to the basics, which is, okay, what do? We reboot, we replug in, we redo this, we do that, and we follow the system and we follow the process. And sometimes we need to recognize that, if we can pause enough, if you could take a break and recognize that, wait a minute, it's about moving back into this the workflow. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and simply going through that deductive logic. Okay, this is not working. This is not working. This is not working. We should be able to get ourselves to a position of resolution. And I think the ultimate backup to all of this stuff, and we can't do it today because obviously it's a live stream, but we could also pull away from this stuff. If things aren't working, right? Pull away from it. In this example, what we might do is, all right, unplug all the fancy microphones and just go back to the real basic, computer microphone. It's okay to go back to some of the basic stuff instead of using all the bells and the whistles.
yeah, it's interesting. Old school. There's a lot. It's a lot to be said for old school. I'm in one of my mastermind groups with, I don't know, it's like 125, 150 CEOs. Every quarter we meet, and we get to present. And you're part of my LinkedIn program, and we're getting great results for people. So I don't know I woke up one morning with an idea that I was going to go old school to the event. Instead of having my iPad with the client results to help me present to people within the organization about what was going on LinkedIn, I printed out 8 color one pagers and laminated them. And I carried around in my bag these, letter size results, like the charts for each client
Right.
name, views. And the old school, it produced way better results than the iPad. The iPad, it's nice because, you can swipe from one client to the next. But when people got the feel of their laminated pages, then all of a sudden someone's going through, and then there was another person that came by, and they were like, "Give me a few of those." And all of a sudden, I had 3 or 4 people with these laminated things going around and around. So it's you don't always have to be the most technologically advanced. And in this particular case, it was a complete accident. I just came up with the idea, but now I realize that even if you were going to do a trade show, like I've only done a few trade shows, and every time I've done a trade show, basically the trade show work made the money and I didn't. It's been terrible. I spent so much money, booths, 5,000, 10,000, hired people, once again, iPad, whatever it is, and the same thing. So yeah, I totally get that. It's old school. It's okay to be old school and just break it down.
And let's back. I mean, we're talking about technology and presentation, but I think the core to conversation today, or maybe sort of the media piece, is stress. Like, as human beings, we get really stressed, and there are usually outside factors that are affecting us. Environments, current sort of business climate, economy, current team. We're going through a lot of change in organizations, from the Great Resignation all the way through to sort of how do you find and attract and retain talent today? How do you build culture? This is a big thing that I'm hearing a lot about, and people are stressed about this. And I think, as we were just talking about, one of the things that we know is, if you are operating from that stress, it's actually going to be quite damaging and disruptive to what you're trying to achieve. There's that fine. Let me ask you this opinion, Mike. I mean, you hear in one aspect, stress is good for us because stress gets us to move, right? But a continued stress or stress that doesn't go away can be quite damaging to us. So you're a pretty, I'm going to say, not stress-free guy, but you manage stress very well. I think you've come up with a number of things. One of them was the pause that you just mentioned earlier. What else do you do to help balance, maybe that's a better word, balance how you handle stress or manage stress?
Okay. So I do hear static again, which is driving me absolutely nuts. Well, I mean, it's it's your point of view because if how do I say this without sounding too wacky? I believe that everything happens for a reason. So to the extent that something comes up, um, you're really given that it's an opportunity to understand. Okay, why did it come up? And then, since where it comes up, it gives you an opportunity to be proactive versus reactive. And then, in hindsight, it gives you, a microscope to really kind of do a deep dive and figure out, it came up for a reason. How can I learn and improve from that? And so it's the framework in terms of how I see it is, and I'm not saying it's perfect because there's a lot of stuff that comes up that goes wrong, like I get reactive. But if I used to get reactive 10 out of 10 times, which I did because I was a very reactive person in my 20s, maybe if I can be only reactive 5 out of 10 times, well, that's a big deal. And so really the framework in terms of why, I think is very helpful for me to kind of understand. Like, for instance, today, I don't, I'm perfectly happy with what we said. An imperfect plan's better in actions are better than a perfect plan not in action because we're doing it, right? We're on and off. It's static. It's this. It's that. It doesn't. To me, this it doesn't cause me stress. You know, um, I would like to be perfect. I know the people listening to it are gonna be like, oh, well, these guys, this thing is too hard to listen to, these little moments. But I'm comfortable because I just know that also when you're starting to create something new, there's the opponent that's trying to stop, bringing goodness and positivity to the world. So it's like we got, these opposing forces. And yeah, that's how I look at it. Your thoughts?
I think it's it's a notable exercise to think in this way. I think some of us actually, um, well, let's back up. I think it's really important that we recognize the point that we end up going from the stress serves us to the stress actually becomes damaging and limiting to what we're trying to achieve, right? Where it's continued. I think having a process for managing that's really
Yes.
important as
Can you
well.
switch to your computer audio?
Sure, it's gonna cut out again. So what we might want to do is pause today and wrap up. But let's try do that now.
So we can wrap up because we're supposed to be. It's 20 minutes with us, so it's a good place to leave off. And I think we can pick up next week. You just said that there's a distinction between, or that a dual distinction between stress is can be looked at from a good perspective, but there's also the equal side of that stress is not. You can't always look at it like that, right?
Correct. Okay, there's my built-in microphone, so it might be a little bit different. So yeah, I mean, we can't always look at it like that, and I think being able to be aware of, when it becomes overwhelming for you is a really important position, right? Um, I think the other side of it is lean into the stress. Stress is there to get you to move and to take a little bit of a different action to your plan. And kind of that's where we started out with today's conversation, which was, it's better to do these things with the plan along the way versus having this perfect plan. And I think if we're going to be successful in today's world, it's operating with a little bit of uncertainty, which for most people is going to stress them out and is not going to allow them to move through that exercise successfully. So there's really two components to it. Maybe it's as brave as us, or maybe it's more about us being willing to operate with the unknown, to operate with some uncertainty, have fallback things to do. So if this happens, this is what I'll do. If this happens, this is what I'll do, right? So we have some things to practice or to do in the moment. And two, know the fact that part of that is how we navigate our, that emotional stress, that anxiety. Taking pause, taking the breath, falling back to the workflow, right? Going back to the basics and the fundamentals, I think are key to all of this. Right?
Yeah, yeah. I think the breath work's important. You know, take just even one deep breath. I mean, you're probably more adept at running exercises, breathing exercise with people, and that kind of thing. But I just know, like, I've read a bunch of articles on this. Just even one deep breath can shift your physiology.
Completely, completely. One of the things that you want to know about things like anxiety is anxiety. There's a physical representation to it, right? Your heart rate's going to accelerate. What's happening in the moment is blood's being pumped into and oxygen's being pumped into your muscles. It's a fight or flight syndrome that's happening right there, right? So breathing, right, is the one thing that will start to rest your anatomic nervous system. It'll start to bring things down. And here's a perfect example. Sometimes you could walk away from something and come back to it, right? I could walk away, I can take a breath, I could, I was trying to fix that thing that wasn't working. And being able to step away from it gives you that space and gives you that time to come back with some fresh eyes and to resolve the issue or the problem, right? That's why it is always a healthy exercise for us to recognize when that time and space is going to serve us to manage the situation effectively. But what we're talking about today is you don't have that availability or ability to walk away. Okay, now
Show must go on.
let's shut down the live stream for 24 hours. We'll start it again tomorrow at 2 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
So breathing and pausing and coming back to that workflow are the things that will anchor you or help you succeed moving forward.
Yeah.
Specifically.
All right, I'm going to give just one more kind of point and wrap up my side, and then you can, if you want to give a point and wrap up your side, and then we'll be on next Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern. I think the other important thing is to be yourself. If you're a person that is lighthearted and likes jokes, it's okay if something goes wrong to step into being yourself and not look at, okay, now this went wrong, and if I'm myself, I'm going to get judged. Just sort of compounding it. People respect, I think, more than ever, being transparent.
Correct.
Zoom, COVID put the world on video. And if there's one thing that I know for a fact, because I'm dealing with so many clients with video and putting themselves out there, is that the fancy high production value videos, they carry less weight than an organic video with someone sharing from the heart and being themselves. So that would be my point, is that, if you're in that situation, the takeaway is take the breath if you can do it, and just, do whatever you would do. That's you. And to break it up and say, stand by, or, if you're a dancey, do a little dance, or, if whatever it is, that's what I would say as a parting thought to what we can do when things like that happen.
Totally agree. Totally agree. My parting thought would be thank you for your patience and watching us struggle in the moment as authentic, transparent live streamers. It's very difficult putting this stuff on, and really the exercise that we want to continue with is sharing great insight and thought to allow us to all operate a little bit better tomorrow, right? I think as human beings, we really need to see these moments, and maybe this was a great kickoff to this live stream, which was the dirtiness behind the scenes of what we have to go through in order to be able to impact and influence. And it doesn't come without its own challenges and stresses and causes. But once again, stay objective, stay focused, stay the path, and it'll all work out.
All right, Talking Human with Greg and Mike. Thank you. Chapter 1 is in the book, And we'll see you every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Over and
Yeah.
out, Greg.
Ciao. We'll see you guys next week.
Thank you.